move. We were taken by a train from Falkensee to Sachsenhausen because nobody was able to move and they were not out to shoot everybody on the highway. We came to Sachsenhausen, barely alive. Naturally, there was again an auction. Some of the people were thrown into crematorium right away, gassed up. We were not too long to Sachsenhausen when they heard the Germans are coming closer and closer. If you know Europe, you know where Berlin is. We were taken by train all the way to close to Vienna, to another beautiful camp, Mauthausen. A lot of people died on the way to the camp. Don't ask me how many days, because I really wouldn't know. We arrived in Mauthausen. Whoever was able to walk up the hill to Mauthausen was okay. We came in there, we're giving it to barracks. Naturally, against segregation, people were given all the way, sending out to crematorium. We were there for a while. Then it was not too much. They were sending out people to work to Buna and places like that. But they really, you were waiting our time. You knew that you're not going to survive here. You're not going to come out alive. And the Hungarian Jews started to come to Austria and became overcrowded. So since the camp became so overcrowded, they sent us to a tent camp. The tent camp were already, like, you know, starving here, doing nothing, giving us little food, but you're just bearing aside. At least it was already April. It wasn't cold. Nobody died from frostbite. After a while, when they put us already with the families, with the Hungarian families, where the kids, women, men, all together, we knew that something's going to happen soon enough. Sure, soon enough, they gathered us for another march. We marched again a few days to a camp. The camp, when we walked there, got off the highway into the forest. Whoever survived, naturally, whoever fell off the line was shot. So I don't have to explain to you that nobody, whoever could walk, walked. Who couldn't walk was shot and they were buried. Sometimes there was always carriages who were coming back and picking up the dead people because they were not going to be buried them all the way on the highways. When we walked, it was a forest. We didn't know what it was. With all these we knew, so the barracks. There were no windows. There were holes, but no windows. We were pushed into each one, I don't know how many, to a barracks till it filled up. When the level filled up, next to a barrack. There were no floors, only mud. Lucky who had still a blanket, a pair of shoes, and canteen. The food was meager. We were there, laying there, waiting to die. There was no work. Once or twice, the Red Cross came in to give out some food. Whoever was able to get out, to get the food, was lucky. People, sorry to say, were like animals. Whoever had a little bit of crumb of bread and he could grab it from him, did it. Was no excuse, no feelings, whatever, just a survival. There were latrines, but you were able to go to a latrine only at certain hours. Otherwise, you would do everything in your own barracks. So I don't have to explain you what was going on. People were dying left and right. You don't know who was laying next to you if he's going to be alive. But you had to make sure that your blanket was always going to be there in the canteen, because this was your lifesaver. People were dying like flies. We were dying, people nothing doing, people just dying, waiting for death. Sure, people were getting sicker and sicker, people were dying. And as a matter of fact, I found that one of our congregants, whom I didn't know, he was in Gunskirchen, Charlie Sternbach, he was liberated in Gunskirchen together with me. When one morning, people looked out of the window, there was no German. People couldn't believe it. They said, it's probably they're going hiding, you should just get out so they can kill you. We stayed another day, Germans were not there. People started to walk out. Dead people were all over. You stepped over them. You leaned over them. You fell over them. You just went out to the road. On the road, across the road, there were farmhouses. Naturally, we were just like any other human being. Everybody wanted to have a piece of food. Anything to eat, anything to drink. Naturally, the people who were so starved they didn't care what they ate. And a lot of them overate, they got typhoid, stomach typhoid, they were dying there. Over 1,200 people died the first week from Gunskirchen. I was so sick. I had typhoid. I was picked up by an American Red Cross and I got to a hospital. I don't know how many days I was there. I don't know if weeks. All I know that one day when I opened up my eyes, I had a white pajama on me. I was being fed. They fed me well. They did everything possible, that American doctors, all doctors, to save lives, but there were a lot of lives that could not have been saved. After a while, when I got a little bit more of strength, and they felt that you are able to walk, they sent us to a DP camp. The DP camp was there was military barracks, but military barracks for German barracks, you know. We were well situated, we were being fed, everyone was being well taken care of. The only thing was, nobody was allowed to get out of the camp. Little did we know that they were doing that for our own sake, that we shouldn't spread the germs and people should get sick and we shouldn't get sick, because a lot of people didn't realize what it means when you're hungry and you start to overeat, that you're going to get typhoid. But who cares? You want to have a stomach. You want to have a full stomach. A lot of people died and they're buried there. Thousands of them. Thousands of them who were buried. After a while I was in the DP place. I befriended a couple of Hungarian guys, since they didn't speak any other language but Hungarian. Since I spoke German, Polish and Hungarian, we got befriended and we figured, what the heck, we survived a camp, why should we be here in a camp and again watched by the soldiers? So I got influenced by the early people. I didn't have anybody. And we ran away from the camp. We figured, not far away, only a few miles away, there's a Russian zone. I'm sure it must be better on the Russian side. What did I know? What did I know? They were older than me, they knew probably better than me. So we got over there, we got put to another displaced person, under the Russian one. Sure enough, we found out we were with the Hungarian prisoners of war. So that's what we ran away from. Couple of weeks we stayed in the camp trying to figure out how to get out. There was no way out from the Russian camp. We got out. Finally, when it took us for a walk, where we going? Since I spoke Russian, I found out, I met one of the Russian soldiers, came from southeastern Poland, Tarnopol. He was Polish. I told him, look here, I'm Jewish. I showed him I was camped in Auschwitz. He said, what are you doing here? So I said, I don't know, where are we going? He said, you're going to Russia. I said, you crazy? He says, look here, you better take off. Sure, I listened to him. I took those two dumb Hungarians, sorry, and I said, let's get out. We ran away, got ourselves on a train, we went to Vienna. Vienna was divided in 4 zones, French, American, and English, with a Russian. We finally found ourselves to an American zone, to a Jewish committee. The Jewish committee went out. I had a coat, Air Force, German Air Force coat was so beautiful. I was holding onto it with my dear life. I came in there. I said, look here, I'm a Polish Jew. He said, anybody can say Polish Jew. He said, you need a prayer? You say a prayer? I said, yeah, I can say a prayer. So I said, what prayer would you like to say? He said, well, she said, isn't that enough that I pull down my pants? He said, anybody can pull down your pants. Don't make pants, nothing makes no difference. So he said, okay, say a prayer for bread. So I told him the prayer for bread. I said, okay. They gave me ID. They gave me a place to stay. They gave me different clothing. I stayed in Vienna, but I didn't want, he said, you want to go back to Poland? I said, no way. I don't want to go to Poland. I said, where do you want to go? He said, well, I want to go to Hungary because we made up with my mother, father, and sister, whoever survives, we're going to go get to Budapest because we befriended a Jewish family who were very nice with us, and this is where we're going to meet. So after a while, they gave us tickets. We went to Budapest. I went to Budapest. In Budapest, the 2 guys took off someplace, and I, not knowing too well Budapest by then, after being so sick and all my mind, I found the family. I went there. They had a big store, clothing store, Pascha Aruhas, and I came in there. Was it my German, with my Air Force coat. He said, who are you? I told him. He said, no, it can't be. Can't be. I said, yes. My father was Arthur, my sister Pauline, my sister was Marilla, my mother's Pauline. Just started to believe who I was. Sure enough, they took care of me. They took me like a son. They had a house, they gave me a small room to live in. I was working in the store. But food got very short. They had a maid. They had a Hungarian maid. And the food was shortage of food in Budapest. Since they had a clothing store, they said, look here, why don't you go with the maid to her village and barter for food? Sure, why not? I knew Hungarian, I spoke Hungarian, I spoke Russian, I spoke German. Sure, we went to her village, we bartered, stayed there 3-4 days, came back. In the meantime, I got to know a Jewish community and I met some people from our hometown. Sure enough, I was looking still for my parents and my sister, with no avail. I was going like that for quite a few months, that once a month we were going to barter. One day, when I came back to Budapest, they said the Jewish-Polish community was here, they were looking for you. Sure. I ran there. Sure enough, there was somebody from our hometown, who I'm sorry to say, he was smuggling sugar and saccharin and cigarette between those 2 countries, so they were making quite a bit of money. He brought me from the Jewish committee a card. From my mother, looking for me. Looking for my father. She's in Sweden. Now, where would I think about that she survived in Sweden? Sure enough, I was able to get somehow another letter out to her. In November 1945, around November 1945,